back in the garage. We've been making tremendous progress on the PTV build, and I really am pleased with how far we've come so far. We still have a lot more work to do, and in this video we are going to be tackling a lot more of that, getting us just that much closer to this vehicle actually being able to run and get it out and test it and see how it does. So without any delay, let's get right on to that and see what we have up for this video. In the previous video, we were able to get the tracks attached to the chassis, so that included that front axle bar. That also included these rear swing arms, mounting these shocks. That was a pretty substantial milestone, actually, getting the chassis to a rolling state. So now we need to tackle a couple smaller items. We need to get some controls set up, one on the left, one on the right, to control each of the hydraulic pumps at the back. We also need to extend our little bumper around the side here. And then we're going to take everything apart and start to tackle the finish welding, because there is quite a bit of welding on this. And after that, really, it's just a matter of putting it all together. We will do a little bit of plumbing, and we should be ready to roll. I have installed the engine, the pumps, and the seat, because we will be needing those to be able to mock up where the controls are going to be. And the way we're going to control the pumps is with the same type of remote hydraulic control cable that we used on the Snowcat. In fact, these cables were ordered for the Snowcat, the mini Snowcat, but they were too short, and it really wasn't any benefit to return them, so I had just been hanging on to them for the past couple years. And like many of the other pieces that we have going into this machine, well, these are other non-purchased, or let's say no extra cost to this project items. So we're going to put these to use here. And like I said, the control arrangement is going to be nearly identical to the mini Snowcat. So these cables here have a threaded end on them, and we can put one of these little heim joints onto there, and that makes a good way for us to connect up to that control there. So what we need to do is come up with some type of a bracket to hold the cable in this position here. Once we get that done, we can move to the front and actually come up with some type of lever. Now, that's the one thing that I don't have, nor am I going to buy. The actual control lever for these cables is extremely expensive. They are somewhere around $130 US each, so that comes out to $260 US. So by the time they are landed here, that's probably a $350 touch. So definitely not doing that. We will come up with our own arrangement. We'll make a little kind of handle with some kind of a joystick knob at the top, and just find a way to connect them up. It'll be pretty easy, because these are actually just a little clevis at the end, and you can pin them through. So I think we're in pretty good shape to make our own for that. And then that will be all there is for controlling this thing. The levers will be forward and back, which will actuate the lever on the pump here, and pretty simple. So let's get going with that. We'll start at this end, like I said, work our way to the levers, and that'll be it. I have just a tab basically welded in place here with a hole to hold the one end of the control cable here, so that should be just fine. I'm going to use the inner hole on this control arm here. If you use the outer one, the angle of rotation becomes a little bit of an issue with the, I guess, the fit of this little section here of the cable as it works in and out. To be able to use that outer one, you have to allow this end of the cable to almost pivot as it works through its range of motion, and it's just a pain to come up with something that's going to work for this scenario. So the closer we can get to this center of pivot, the better. It just means there's going to be less interference here. What it does end up doing is requiring a little bit more force on that control lever to actually activate this, but it's really minimal in this grand scheme of things because we're going to have a lot of opportunity to get some good leverage with the two control levers here, so I'm not too worried about that. So now that we've got that basically taken care of, we're going to work up front here and come up with a way to basically make a lever and get it attached in place into the kind of the most comfortable location that you would expect a lever to be, and then go from there. I've said it before, I'll say it again. This detail work is just killer. It takes so long to do such a little amount of work. We finished by getting these little tabs installed. That wasn't too much work, but then we got into these control handles here, and man, that is a ton of work. Like, I know those levers that you can buy, they are super easy and slick and you can mount them wherever you want, but like, yeah, it's just hard to justify that cost. So anyway, we managed to get something together here, so I will show you kind of what is going on. So we took, it was just a piece of 1.5 by 3 rectangular tube. We cut it in half to give us this U shape. It's just tack welded in here. Once I get everything taken apart, I will finish weld this, and we will just cut this on a nice little angle to make it, you know, not so abrupt there. Round that over just so that it looks nice overall, and that'll be the pivot point. It's just a regular piece of 3/4 inch tube. I managed to find some cool handles out in my stockpile of parts, so that turned out really nice. It's great that it fits onto that piece of pipe. So we have our little holder blocks, and so basically the way that this works is these are a 9/16 hole that we've drilled through the block there, and then we've cross drilled with another smaller bit, and basically you can see there's this little half round here, and this half round gets caught right in there, and that's what locks this into place. And so in the actual control handle block, they retain the control cable just the same way. So it works fairly well. It's got a good range of motion, and we've got 2 of them. So overall, turned out pretty good. So we have forward and back on each side, and yeah, that's really good. So I'm pleased to say that the controls are more or less taken care of. Not much else to do, just the finish work once we actually start to do final assembly. That's all that's remaining on that. So the last step that I'm gonna do here is tackle this little bumper thing. So I got a piece of tube in here. We're gonna get the pipe bender out. We'll probably do just one bend, and we will cut it in half at the middle of that bend, and then that's where it'll just meet up with the end there. We'll weld it on, and that'll be it. I think after that, we are in pretty good shape. We can start to take things apart. There's nothing else mechanically that we need for this machine. That's it. There will be, of course, the plumbing to get the hydraulic lines from the pumps down into the motors there. So we might need to find some way of just securing the hoses a little bit. They'll have to come down and find their way into the track. But overall, yeah, it's coming along really nicely. So let's get that bumper taken care of, and yeah, I think we'll be done. And there we go. We have our bumper done. It turned out fairly well. I'm pleased with how it looks. It's pretty simple, not much to it. Just like I said, I took one 40-inch piece. I put a bend. Once it was bent, I just cut it in the bandsaw and just welded it on there. So that turned out pretty good. Overall, that is all there is for fabrication on this thing. There will be obviously the finish welding, adding a couple little tabs here and there, cleaning up a lot of the pieces, like I said, that I've just kind of put in place for now. We wanted to make sure it works. Once we get it welded into place, we'll go over everything with the grinder, make sure that all of the little sharp edges are rounded down and taken care of. But overall, that really does conclude the fabrication for the PTV. We will now begin to disassemble everything and work towards getting, like I said, getting that finish welding taken care of, and move on to getting a coat of paint on this thing. And we're getting pretty close to getting it back together and potentially taking it for a ride. So that's pretty exciting. There we go. That was pretty easy to get this unit stripped down to just the bare chassis. Pull off the 2 tracks, remove the power unit, remove the seat, take out the controls, and that's all there is to it. There's not a lot when you really think about it. This is probably one of the simpler builds that I've had in the past couple of years. So yeah, so we're gonna get going on that finish welding now, see how far we can get, and then we'll start to do some sanding and get it cleaned up. got all the welding complete on the chassis. That wasn't too much actually. Pretty good. No issues. So the next step is going to be taking that 6-inch grinder and just putting the sanding disc in it, cleaning everything up, getting ready for paint. There's not really anything else to do on this. Oh, I do need to get the grinder out and just clean up a couple of these things here. But yeah, aside from that, it's ready for paint, and then the best part, the assembly. So let's keep going. Well, it's dusty AF in the garage now, but we got all of that surface rust cleaned off of the chassis for the PTV here, and I am at the point now where we can probably throw a coat of paint on this thing, but I am a little torn between two options. So it looks pretty cool the way it is, and I was thinking about maybe just applying a clear coat to the steel as it is. The alternative is I did get on clearance a can of this trim clad gloss aluminum, and that stuff I'd say almost looks like a galvanized steel once it's cured. What I could do is I could add some red or blue to that, and I could tint that almost like a metallic flake. But I'm not sure if I want that or if I should just stick with this bare metal look. I am kind of partial to this. It has a little bit of that rat rod look to it. It's going to be a tough one to figure out. What I will do in the meantime is get the garage cleaned up because it is really dusty in here, and we'll move on to that part next. So I guess you could tell that I chose to go with the clear coat on the bare steel, and I think it turned out pretty good. The main reason that I chose this direction is because I had tried mixing the silver with some red, and all I got was pink, and I'm like, nope, that's not gonna do. I think this is a really cool solution, actually. I've never done something like this before, and it's actually turned out pretty good. The whole kind of tone, the texture, having used the wire brush, you can see a whole bunch of kind of irregularities and imperfections in the steel, so that turned out pretty cool. Then you can also see some of the welds and whatnot. Overall, I mean, what does it really matter? It's just gonna get beaten up, but I figured, well, let's just give the clear coat a try. Like I said, I've never done this before with clear coat. I've always painted stuff, it's either black or dark blue, or I've done yellow, red, but this is a first. So I am quite pleased with this. What I'm gonna do is let this dry in the garage overnight, and then tomorrow I will put a second coat on, let that dry overnight again, and then we should be ready for final assembly. Some of the parts here, like the engine mount, I will just give those a quick coat of paint with a flat black from a spray can. Just a lot easier to get into all those nooks and crannies. And it just dries way faster. It'll dry in 20 minutes versus the oil-based clear coat. It's the same as that blue that I used on the Mini Snowcat. This stuff being oil-based, it takes forever to dry. It'll probably only just be tacking up in about 6 hours. So it's a little bit of a nuisance from that perspective, but that trim clad oil base, that stuff is incredibly durable. It is the best quality paint. Once it's cured, it is the best quality paint. I would say it's comparable to like a powder coating. It's just so durable, and it goes on like a thick coat. And you'd say, oh, it's just a brush on, it's gonna look like crap. No, it levels out to like this beautifully glossy shine, and it just looks fantastic. So overall, yeah, I'm pretty pumped about this. I was a little concerned about how it was gonna look at first, but I think the more I look at it, I think, yeah, this is pretty darn cool. So we're gonna clean up in here, and then we'll do another coat tomorrow morning. So it's been 12 hours since we put that first coat of the clear on, and it turned out really nice. This is pretty darn cool, actually. I like the overall appearance. So what we're gonna do now is, again, flip the chassis over upside down, get the underside parts first, and do another coat on the top, and then this should be good to go. I do have to take this pump mount off, give it a coat of paint. The swing arms also need a coat of paint. But aside from that, we are looking pretty good. Okay, well, the second coat of clear has had a couple hours to dry. It's now dry to the touch, so we can start working on final assembly of the PTV. It's gonna take a couple weeks before this coating actually cures to a hard enamel. But until then, it's still going to be totally workable. It's just that we got to be a little bit more cautious because there is potential to still scrape that coating off until it's finally cured. So that marks the end of fabrication for the chassis and for the PTV. What I do still have to do is give the swing arms a coat of paint, take the pump mount off, give that a coat of paint. We got our swing arms and our pump mount painted up. They are ready to go as well. So we are officially done with all the fabrication, all the painting, all the parts are ready to go. And that means we can move on to assembly. But having said that, I am gonna end this video here again. I know there's still lots to cover, but I would like to make sure that we tackle that next part of the project, the final assembly, in, I would call it the finale video. So we're gonna go through the entire assembly of the entire personal track vehicle from start to end, and hopefully in the end of that video we will have our finished working product so we can actually take it out for a ride. But until then, I would like to thank everybody who has subscribed till now. It looks like everybody's really enjoying the content, and I've been really enjoying this build. So if you haven't already, like I say all the time, be sure to subscribe, and thanks for watching.